Why is a math book always unhappy? Because it's got lots of problems. Hey everyone, Joe Workman here, and in this video we're going to be looking at the new date functions that are added into Pi. Now these allow you to take basically date fields and do some math based on them. So we can, maybe do a difference between two dates, or we could take a date and then, add 24 hours to it and get the new time. And so some very interesting stuff. So we're going to look at two different demos for Pi. We're going to look at demos 11 and 12, and let's jump in and have a look. So hopefully by now you've watched a bunch of the other Pi videos and you have an understanding. I'm going to glaze over some of the basics of Pi, and we're just going to dive into how you can use some of the date functions within it. So right now we're going to look at demo 11, and essentially what we're doing is we're just taking the local time and then we're adding or subtracting hours to that. And we're calculating new times. So we have Harry's time, Fred's time, Bob's time, and Jane's time. So it's pretty interesting how we can use dates. Let's have a look. So here at the top, we have a slider that's just simply called hours. And it is a plus or minus a number of hours that we're going to be using inside Pi. So here in the first Pi, this is the one that actually takes our local time, the current time, and then adds a certain number of hours to that. In the advanced settings of Pi, you can add load external libraries. And what that does is that shows us a little blue plus button here, and you can add a few things. Right now, we're going to add date functions. So here's the date functions external library. And what this does is you only need to load this once on a page. You don't need to add this to every single one. Once it's loaded onto the page, you can use it to all your heart's content in as many Pi stacks on that page as you want. Now, it does have its own cheat sheet, so if you go ahead and click on Show Cheat Sheet, there are some really good examples here on how you can use Moment, which is the library that we're using for this. It's called Moment.js, and we'll look at its webpage in a little bit. But right now, the cheat sheet shows you a few examples, and we're actually going to be using these examples right here in these videos today. So here if we look, it gives us a new function called moment. And basically moment with just by itself, just moment with parentheses, gives us the current time. And then based on that, we can then do stuff to it. So we can add, so here we do .add, and then we're passing in the hours from the slider. So if the slider value is 1, we're going to add 1 hour to the current time. And then this .calendar function gives us just a nice, pretty output. So let's have a look at that in preview again, just so we could see. So currently, as I'm recording this, it is, if we do, let's go back to 0. It is 2:19 in the afternoon. That is the time right now. It is 2:19. And if I add 2 hours, it's going to be 4:19. So what that .calendar does is it takes the time and then we added 2, and basically it formats it to today at 4:19. So it does that automatically for us. It's a cool little function. There's a lot of other output formats for Moment. It's a powerful library that I use in a lot of my time-based stacks in Total CMS and in Foundation and TARDIS and things of that nature. If we need to display time, I'm using Moment because it's very powerful, and it gives us a lot of flexibility for displaying time in a lot of different ways. So here in that .calendar function, it just creates this nice little automatically thing today at 4:19. It also does things like tomorrow at 3:19 a.m., right? So it kind of just formats that in a nice English way. So really, if we look at some of the other ones, we're just doing moment.add, and then we're adding the number of hours, and then we're subtracting 7 from that. Because for zone number 1, I know it's 7 hours before mine, right? So that's a way of just kind of how we're adjusting the time zones here. In this one, I'm doing hours plus 4, hours plus 11, hours minus 10, right? And then we're doing the .calendar at the end, so we get that nice, pretty formatted look, and we're done, right? So this might look simple, but we're doing a lot here. We're taking the current time, we're adding a certain number of hours to that, and then we're outputting it with the calendar function so it looks pretty. So now let's go ahead and look at demo 12. What demo 12 does, it actually takes two date fields from Foundation. So these are Foundation date fields from the Foundation form stacks, and it calculates the difference between them, right? So this is -1 days. If I go ahead and say February 1st, this is 15 days, 360 hours, and a lot of seconds, right? And this is really simple to use as well. Let's go ahead and see how to do this. So here's demo 12, and I have the start date and the end date fields, and these are date fields from Foundation Forms. And if you notice, I give them name of start-date and end-date. Now, here is an example of how we do the day difference. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy this, and we're going to open this up in VS Code, so it's a little bit easier to read. So here we have this code. Now I've formatted it a little bit so it's easier for us to read and process so we can see everything. So first off, we have moment.duration, and then we have a parenthesis. And one little advanced note here, if you're using something like VS Code, as you notice, it shows you, it highlights the matching parentheses. So I know this parenthesis goes with that parentheses, okay? So we're doing a duration, which is a time period. And at the end, we're going to say, we're going to display it as the number of days. So we're going to get the number of days, right? Because this is going to return a bunch of seconds, and we need to automatically translate that into days. So we have duration, and then this gives us the duration that we need, and then we're going to display it as days. So let's look at this inner part of duration. Here we're doing, we're getting a moment element. So we're creating a date object from the end date. So we're passing the actual end date from the form. And we have to provide the format of that date. So what is that date format? Is it here we're doing day, month, and then the 4-digit year. So if depending on how your settings are in the date picker, you're going to want to modify this to be the actual format that date is displayed in. And then we're using the .diff function because we want to get the difference between two dates. So we're doing end date, diff, and we're doing a diff from the start date. So here we create a date object from moment that uses the start date, and we pass the format as well, which is the same format as the end date. So we're finding the difference again between the end date and the start date. And that outputs the difference in time. And duration will take that difference in time and then output as days, because that's what we defined. So this is a little complex, right? But it's not too far-fetched where you can't follow it, right? So we're taking the duration, doing end date, start date, finding the difference, and then formatting that as the number of days. So that's pretty cool. And if we look at the hours, we do the same. It's the same exact formula. We're just outputting it as hours. And the next one is we're outputting it as seconds. So it's pretty simple. And to output this, you're probably already familiar. Here, we're actually using the snippets. So we're just taking the snippets from these, right? Just show snippet, copy that span, and plop that right in the header, and it will display that value for us. So the two functions that we learned here are duration and diff. Now, moment is a very powerful library that allows us to do a lot of various things. Let's go ahead and check out some of the documentation for it. So if we go to the Pi product page, we go to the FAQs, and we can go down and do date functions. We go external resources for Pi and JavaScript, and then we do moment. So here we can manipulate dates. So here's some stuff that we saw. Here we did moment, and remember here, if this looks familiar, we did add. You can also subtract. You can do a particular year. You can modify the minutes, the hours, and seconds. So a lot of this allows you to manipulate time. So you could take the same, this basically adds 7 days, subtracts 1 month. It goes to the year of 2009, so on and so forth. So it allows us to really provide us some function for really manipulating a particular date to do a lot of what you want. And all of those are definitely documented here. So you can go through and read the documentation. They have a lot of settings, and a lot of examples of how you can use these various methods. Now, if we go to some stuff on how we can display dates, this is a lot of stuff on how you can format the output of the dates. So remember there was that really cool thing that was just .calendar, gave us kind of a human readable format. It was just like today at this time or tomorrow at this time. Here it allows us fine grain control over the exact format that you want. So it's just .format, and then you have to pass it the actual format that you need. And as you see, there's a lot of control. So you can do, here's a lot of examples of how you need to pass the format in. So basically you create your format inside this string, and these little characters, the map is here. So the tokens are here. And here's an example of what those tokens will give you. So this format is very powerful. You can also do stuff like here's that .calendar, right? So this is what we did here. So it was tomorrow at, Sunday at, things of that nature. There's also time to, so it provoked, in a day, 5 days ago, 5 days from now, things of that nature. So there's a lot of really powerful ways that you can output time using moment. And the last one that we kind of looked at was duration. And this allows us to take something and display it as a particular duration. So here you can pass it a particular amount of time, and then you can display it as seconds, as minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, so on and so forth. So I hope you enjoyed that kind of overview of how you can use dates and manipulate dates using Pi, or actually using Moment that Pi can load for you, right? Definitely need to have a little bit of knowledge of JavaScript here, right? Or, be able to read the examples and copy and paste and do some experimentation. And as you see, you can get some powerful stuff. Displaying dates in particular formats, doing some durations and differences and calculating stuff. You can manipulate dates by, say this day in 2010, stuff like that, right? Some really cool stuff. I can't wait to see what you build with it. I'm excited of the possibilities that Pi can give us, particularly with, in this examples of dates, since there's nothing else really out there that I'm aware of that can kind of do exactly what Pi can do with dates. So I'm really excited. I'm happy that we can start doing some of these more advanced mathematical functions, especially with dates. It's pretty cool stuff. So share what you're doing on Weaverspace. I'd love to see it. I can't wait. If you have any questions, go ahead and post there, and we can help you, with your functions and stuff like that. So take care. I hope you enjoy Pi, and we'll see you soon.